This is gonna be a review in Cloudspire 2.0, so it's the newer version that just came out from the Kickstarter, maybe like 3 months ago, 4 months ago. It includes all the expansions, all the content. So I have everything for the game. So if you guys are wondering what exactly do I have, everything again is Cloudspire 2.0. The 1.0 version was really bad. I'm not gonna talk about it because that's the past. But the more I watch board game reviews, the more I wonder how many times they play the game before they make a review. It seems like they play a game no more than 5 times and then jump to a conclusion. And even then, do they play the game with different player counts or different game modes? I don't know. It's bothersome at times because some games are not designed to be party games where you play a group once in a while and put it on the shelf. Games like TI4 and Cloudspire require investment of time to learn the mechanisms and the factions and the flow of events, where if you haven't played 20 plus times, the game may seem broken or too complicated. Cloudspire is a very deep, engaging game. It will take 10 playthroughs just to grasp the core flow of the game and faction understandings. Then another 10 games start to learn the faction counters and importance of fortress builds, your build setups. So after I played the game up easily 75 plus times. I decided to review this game and hope to give you guys a better understanding overall of the game as a whole. I haven't spent as much time playing any board game as I have played in Cloudspire. I easily played it over any other game I own. This game has something to it that brings me back over and over again. But just because the game gets you hooked, does that make it a great game? I won't spend any time explaining how the game is played, but we'll cover things that stand out, good or bad. Cloudspire is a game that is inspired by tower defense and MOBA games. From playing it as much as I have, you can just remove the tower defense category out of it completely. Many playthroughs, towers were not built, other than landmark units bringing them out as a reward. It falls into MOBA for sure. Towers in the game are built at times to defend yourself against the unit when it was unaccounted for, or to spend your source because you're maxed out and you just want to give her a source because you get X amount every income phase. There's some factions, obviously, clearly the exceptions when it comes to towers. One thing that makes this game so good is the quality of build. I love it, and I love it a lot. Miniatures are annoying to me, especially for games like Zombicide, where it's just the numbers on the board and the setup and the cleanup take forever, and all units are just 3 different models. It's just 3 different unit models, but they have like hundreds of them just pouring out. The chips are great, and each faction generally gets 9 different units with great artwork and easy to understand stats. All the units in the game are chips that flip, like poker chips, weighted clay chips. The neoprene mats are wonderful for the game board. Some things to be aware of, though, the game comes with health chips that are not the premium quality ones. And let me tell you, it makes a difference even in gameplay. So if you have a chance, order those, even though they're separate from the core game. Another thing to be aware of is the game does not come with 3D towers, 3D tower models that you might see us play. We have these towers up. Those are expansions. They look great and feel amazing. That is, with the exception of the Horizon's Wrath models, which are too wide, and the Uprising models from the expansion are too thin to put the chips in. The chips don't fit inside of them. So my recommendations is just buy the miniatures for the original base game and not for the expansions, and use the original ones for that. This may be a strange part for me for a game with so many pieces and parts. It sets up and cleans up very fast. We can set the game up in under 5 minutes and clean it up in under 5 minutes as well. And that's including all the expansions and content, not just the base game. We just cleaned it. We played Twilight Imperium 4th edition for the first time, and it probably took me 15 minutes to clean it up. And I had somebody helping me. I played Zombicide recently, and the setup and cleanup felt like forever, so big props to CTG for that. What about the gameplay? The more important focus of any game, in my opinion. This is where I butt heads with other players. Let's start with what is universally agreed upon, and that is that the game is very fine-tuned. There's a lot happening, and with over 1 trillion talents to reference, this game will start to make sense after 4 or 5 playthroughs. You'll just start to understand like what's going on a little bit. The flow from phase to phase is really good. The downtime between a 2-player game is minimum, and the different approaches you can take during the same turn feel good. You have a lot of starting options with each faction, which ways you want to build them. None of them are forced. You can get 2 experienced players to finish a game in under an hour and a half, which is great in my opinion for the amount of moving pieces involved. Now, where's the disagreements? And I just want to add a little notice, and you could get a game in under an hour, it just depends. But a 4-round game is probably hour, hour and a half, easy. Where's the disagreements? This game was designed so 2 games are never the same. That was you can kind of tell in the design philosophy, they wanted to make sure that games never the 2 same games being played. The placement of aisles in the beginning, to placements of landmarks after the aisles have been revealed, to market options, which I think is over 20 chips as of now. I didn't count, but there's a lot. To event cards and relic cards, both all these great features and things trying to keep the game fresh, it feels like the game becomes 50% tactics and 50% unexpected outcomes. Or to better put it, unknown/randomness. Let me give you an easy example. There are chips in the game that are called swamp chips. They generate source/money, and you need them. You want to get as much as they can to get going in the second wave of the game. And they're easy to kill, and they're in the beginning of the game. They're set randomly on the map, on certain source walls. With random placement of landmarks, one player could have 3 of them right next to his base, while the other one is only stuck with 1 next to your base. Now, that doesn't seem like a big deal if you're learning the game, but more experienced players understand the larger outcome of such a start. Another is the events. We love them, and we use them in every game we play now. We used to not use them, but after playthroughs, we found they added a touch that makes the game feel more, the best way to put it is Cloudspire. Events are random things, though. They change rules and cause things to happen on the map that could literally end the game for one player, but in most cases, cause all players to adjust from wave to wave. The more I play this game, the more I realize that my wins may be as much a part of a landmark placement, or an event relic card, or a tower dice roll, as it is proper player during the build or prep phase. Now, for me, that I'm okay with it, especially with this game. But for players who want to control the outcome, this is where I would recommend a different game instead than most players would want. And I think this game is more random than most players would want to admit. Solo co-op are questionable in my opinion. I played a lot of the solo missions, and they are great, but just like with co-ops, it can become mentally tasking when you're controlling 4 to 5 factions, the amount of talents to keep track of, and the only difference is too much even for some games for me. Because when you do solo games, you control the AI units and you control your faction, but the AI talents are different for solo playthroughs than they are competitive playthroughs. So talents wording change. So some things like summon would be different for an AI unit than it is for a player playing it. But the way solo is played is very good. The way it is played is very good. The AI movement is simple to grasp if you understand the player versus player movement. The missions are challenging, and you have 3 different levels of complexity to each mission for greater playability. There's a lot of missions. And then there's a lot of co-op missions too. So it's just a lot happening in solo missions. Is it the best solo game I've played? I don't think it is, no. I think Mage Knight is superior, and Too Many Bones is better as a solo game. But Cloudspire replayability is better than Too Many Bones and more challenging for sure than Too Many Bones. It's not the best solo game, but it's a good solo game. I'll put it that way. But it is extremely mentally tasking. Even compared to Mage Knight, Cloudspire can get extremely mentally tasking when you're playing a solo game. Now, there is another thing they have. It's called the Endless Mode, which I found I enjoyed more than the solo missions. And that maybe is because my main goal was to break the Endless Mode. So Endless Mode is like a wave of hordes that keep coming. They just keep summoning. The units keep spawning harder and harder and harder from mission to mission. And you want to survive. And after wave 28, it's the same thing that repeats then. They don't get any stronger or weaker. And so it's really fun. You pick a faction, you fight against 3 other factions that just keep coming at your base. And I enjoyed it because for me the goal was just to break the Endless Mode, which will make go on forever. And I did achieve that with the Bronin, and I'm halfway through with Uprising. So I got to the point where from wave to wave, I can go to wave 100 and I would still be on the board with the Bronin with no problems. When it comes to expansions, we play with everything all the time. All the expansions add great asymmetry to the game. All the expansions. And I found every faction enjoyable to play with other than Aurora. And the only reason why I say that, just Aurora is just not my playstyle. That's the only reason why I say it. It's still a great faction, just not my playstyle. As mentioned before, I would not purchase the Horizon's Wrath miniatures. I would just use the base games instead because their production value with the base is just, one's too small where chips don't fit, one's too wide where it takes up too much game board space. And you hit other moving units. The game is extremely asymmetric. This is a great thing for avid gamers and not so much for people who have family members or friends who just want to spend who don't want to spend any more than 2 hours playing a game and learning a game that has that many rules, and learning a game that's too many rules through each playthrough. So I feel that asymmetry at times hurts the game as much as it helps it. It's hard to get new players to want to play this game when you can teach them the Rising Sun, which is much shorter play time and is quicker to play, and pick back up on a following game a lot easier. So I don't know if asymmetry is a plus or a minus. For me, I enjoyed the asymmetry. I had players that played it that did not enjoy it. Many times, even when we play the game, we are caught in situations where we don't know the answers to something, and it's still not referenced in the reference rulebook. I'll give you 2 examples. Just the last time we played, what was it, on Sunday? The last time we played, this came up. There was an event card that read, if players don't pay 1 source, they cannot move their heroes. I played at the start of the round, and my opponent had heroes on top of his deployment stack. Did he have to pay 1 source to move it? And if he decided not to pay it, what would happen to the minions underneath the stack, the deployment stack? No clear answer still, and that's with the updated rules in the reference book. Here's another example where we couldn't find an answer for, and this is after 75 games. If the Uprising reward dice is placed on a unit that summons, what happens to the dice? Now, if you don't know the game, this is probably jargon to you, but people who play the game might understand what I'm saying. Does it go away, or does it get put on? The side until the taproot is revealed again? What about a relic that allows a minion to be returned to its fortress and then come back out the next round? What happens to the dice then? Like, once again, no clear answer. Now, this happened multiple times. This will happen multiple times per game. Every game we play, we still have situations that come up like this. And that's with us, with me, you, and having played 75 plus games. Imagine picking up and learning a game from the beginning. If it wasn't for Discord and the community, I would have for sure stopped playing this game a long time ago. Where does this leave us with a numerical value, if there is one? The scale is 1 through 10. What would I give it? It plays great, feels great, faces make sense, components are top-notch. Player count from 2 to 4 players will increase it roughly by an hour each, so 4-player game will run 4 to 5 hours. Solo is reasonably good. Co-op is fun. Endless mode is great. Factions are awesome, other than the miniatures for the 1 expansion, which I will brag about again. A lot of talents to learn, a lot of unclear situations. With all that said, I would give this game a 9 out of 10. If there wasn't moments of unclear situations, it would definitely be probably as good as a board game can get. Both the nature of the beast, it might never happen. So many moving parts and so many things that will randomize it. I recommend playing it with other player counts, but I recommend playing it with any player counts, but I found the chaos of a 2v2 or everyone for themselves in a 4v4 quite explosive and fun. But thanks for watching, and on to the next 20-some playthroughs for the next game we will be reviewing. Man,
I could be retarded. Build something there. Oh wait, I could build something there too.
Yeah, you're almost better off waiting for this tower to die, because if you build something here, you don't have the range for that.
You're not going to survive long enough to build something there.
Well, if I do,
because he has 3 health left. This has quick strike. And
Yeah.
this guy has 1 thing and 2 attacks.
Possibly.
That's 4. So bring me down to 3.
Yeah, that might be it.
Well, even still, you'd kill me.
No, we'll see.
Try it. We'll see what happens. At this point, you got nothing to lose.
Oh, dude, if I survive, I'll get a tower. Don't bother with the tower. I'll just do this. I don't need a tower though. Let's do that.